See, I told you there's lots to pack in this morning. Big day for hundreds of thousands of GCSE students today who get their results soon. The schools minister on the show very shortly. Before that, we want to bring you some new pictures just in. And this is showing the devastation caused by wildfires in Algeria that have now killed 65 people. 28 soldiers trying to fight the flames have also lost their lives. Jemima Walker reports.
Wild blazes and desperate attempts to save their homes. These are the scenes in the Tizi Ouzou province of northern Algeria, as wildfires carve through the forested areas. Dozens of people have already fallen victim to the blaze, resulting from unprecedented temperatures. The fires have left animals and people displaced. Some feel like they're fighting an impossible battle. Foreign leaders have offered their help. The French President Emmanuel Macron said France will send 2 water bombers to the worst affected regions. Despite tensions with Morocco, their king has also offered firefighting equipment. In one incident, 28 soldiers were killed while protecting people's homes. Algeria's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has declared 3 days of national mourning. All government business has now been suspended as the country tries to prevent further tragedy. Jemima Walker, Sky News.
Oh, my goodness me. Is it down to climate change? We'll be talking about that in more detail later on in the programme. Before that, though, 500,000 students will receive their GCSE results today, with grades being determined by teachers again after another year of exams being cancelled because of the pandemic. Let's talk about it in more detail. Our reporter Sadia Chowdhury joining us from Firth Park Academy, which is in Sheffield. Good morning to you. There must be some jangling nerves there this morning.
Good morning. Yeah, the students haven't arrived yet, but remember, this has been a very difficult year for them. Many of them would have had long absences from their academic year. So this year, they're being assessed only on the things that they have been taught. And they're going to be assessed on multiple pieces of work so they can really show what they've achieved. And for the teachers, they've had guidance this year in terms of how to make more, objective decisions. And also, those results have been checked not just by the head teachers here, but also by the exam boards. So lots going on here. You can see the preparations behind me, balloons, as exam results are set to be opened by students in the next few hours. We'll bring you all the reaction from here in Sheffield.
Look forward to it, Sadia. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Well, joining us now is the Schools Minister, Nick Gibb. Mr Gibb, a pleasure to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us on the programme. Hundreds of thousands of teenagers receiving their GCSE results this morning. Your message to those who don't receive the increasingly attainable higher grades?
Well, my message to those young people is there are lots of options available. There's a helpline, the National Careers Service helpline, for them to ring and to find out and get advice for what to do next. But there are a lot of options for those that don't get the grades to go on to do A-levels or T-levels. There are all kinds of different vocational qualifications, apprenticeships that young people can consider. They can retake those GCSEs, of course, if they wish to as well. There's an autumn series. They can retake those exams in the autumn if they wish to take them. And, of course, there's an appeal process for young people who feel that they've not been given the right grade. But today we should be congratulating those hundreds of thousands of young people who have achieved so much in very trying and difficult circumstances over the last 18 months. And we should be paying tribute to all those young people for what they've achieved. It's the culmination of not just 2 years of the GCSE course, but 11 years of school education. So congratulations to everyone who's receiving their grades today to enable them to go on to the next phase of their education, whether that's T-levels or A-levels or an apprenticeship. And also thank you to the teachers who've done a magnificent job in administering the teacher-assessed grade system with all the advice and guidance that they've had from the exam boards and the evidence that they have compiled to determine the grades that are being awarded today.
OK. Well, given what we saw with the A-levels, it looks as though the kids will do very well. 45% of A-level results were either A or A star. This is going to have to be looked at for next year, isn't it? Because you can't just have, you know, half of kids getting A and A stars. How do you then differentiate between them going forward? Is that something that's going to have to be considered for next year?
Yes, this is an exceptional year designed to make sure that despite the pandemic and despite the fact that we had to cancel exams because it wouldn't have been fair for children, young people to sit exams when they've had such different experiences of COVID, the different levels of self-isolation and so on. So the teacher-assessed grade system is the best alternative to making sure they can go on to the next phase of their education or their
question,
careers.
Though, Minister.
But we have already...
With respect, Minister, that's not my question. My question is, not this year, next year. You're going to have to refresh the grading system for next year, aren't you?
Yeah, so we've already announced the adjustments to the exams. We expect all young people to be taking exams in 2022, but we'll be making adjustments to those exams to reflect the fact that this cohort will have had disruption to their education as well. And the regulator Ofqual will be saying more about the grading standard that will be used for those exams in the autumn term.
OK, so just to clarify, you will be refreshing the grading system for next year?
No, what I said was we'll be talking about what the grading standard will be for the 2022 exams. We are looking also in the longer term about how to make sure that we get back to the system we had before the pandemic broke, where we had year-on-year no grade inflation, and we want to get back to that system in the longer run. But we have to make sure when we do that we are fair between different cohorts, the ones that took their exams in 2020 and 2021, and the students that are taking their exams in the future. It's fairness that lies at the heart of any decisions about grading. These are very difficult decisions to make, and we will be doing so in conjunction with the regulator, with the exam boards, and indeed with teachers and parents and students up and down the country before we come to firm decisions. But the issue about the grading system is the longer term.
I'm sorry, we only have a limited amount of time, Minister, as you know, and I've allowed you very fulsome answers to the first two questions. You're talking about being fair. Private school pupils' grades far higher than those from less privileged backgrounds. You've been Schools Minister since 2010. Is it demoralising for you, with all the work that you've done, to close that attainment gap, to then see what's happening?
Well, we have closed the attainment gap since 2010 by 13% in primary schools and by 9% in secondary schools up to the beginning of the pandemic. Independent schools are academically selective by and large, and they always do get the higher share of top grades. And this year, what we've seen is that right across the school system, whatever kind of school the young person goes to, they have seen an increase in those top grades. And if you look at the relative change in those top grades, independent schools have gone up by about 15%, comprehensives have gone up by about 18%. So those top students are performing better right across the board, whatever type of school they go to. But we are determined as a government, we have been since 2010 to close that attainment gap. And that's what all our reforms have been about. The reforms to reading, the reforms to how you teach maths, the changes to the curriculum in secondary school, the changes to the GCSEs and A-levels have all been about making sure that every young person, regardless of their background, gets the best possible education.
OK, Minister, university students, do you agree with your boss, who was on the show earlier on in the week, that they should receive a refund if online learning continues?
Well, what we said is that there are no COVID reasons now for students not to receive face-to-face education. These are matters ultimately for universities, but there's certainly no COVID reason why students cannot receive face-to-face education. The Office for Students, the regulator, does monitor very closely the quality of education that students are receiving in our universities. And if students have complaints, they should, of course, complain to the university and through the complaints process.
OK, my question was, should they receive a refund? Your boss thinks they should. Do you agree with him?
Well, there can be. There are students who have gone through that complaints procedure who have then received compensation from the university. But these are ultimately matters for the university, and we have a very powerful regulator that Gavin referred to.
I understand all that. I'm asking your opinion. Do you agree with your boss that kids who cannot have face-to-face learning should get a refund?
As I've said, there is a procedure by which they can get compensation. And that they need to go through the complaints procedure if the quality of education that they are receiving isn't of the standard that is required by the regulator.
OK, so if that's the case, and lots of them do that, who's going to pay for the shortfall?
Well, that will be the university sector. If they're not providing the quality of education that the regulator requires of them, then, of course, the university themselves will have to fund any compensation payments made to those students. But I am confident that we do have very high-quality education in our universities. We have a world-leading university sector in this country, of which we can be proud. They have responded extremely well to increasing numbers of students going to university. We've seen a 5% increase last year, another 5% increase in places this year. We have record numbers of young people going to university and record numbers of young people from disadvantaged backgrounds going to university. So I think we can be proud of our university sector and what they're doing for young people and what they're doing for our country. OK, to that end, do you agree that universities should be paying compensation for kids to defer for 12 months, like Exeter University is offering 10 grand for some kids to defer for a year? Well, every year there are a number of students who do, a small number of students who defer, and that's the same this year. At universities, we've been working very closely with the universities. You're not answering any of my questions this morning. Do you think that universities should pay students to defer for a year? Yes, they can do if they wish to, but these things are always optional for students. Any student that achieves the grades... That's all I needed on that one. I just want to ask you about your boss now. Keir Starmer has called for him to be sacked. Why do you think he should keep his job? Because he's a very effective education secretary. I've worked with Gavin Williamson for the last 2 years, and he is driven to make sure that no student will suffer long-term damage to their prospect as a consequence of the pandemic. He's driven to continue the reform programme in our education system, where we are seeing, up until COVID, we saw that attainment gap close in primary school and in secondary school, and he's driven to do more to make sure we continue to drive up standards in our education system so that background does not matter in terms of the opportunities available for young people. OK, talk to me about what's going on in Berlin and a British man arrested for spying. Tobias Ellwood, MP, suggesting we need to review the status of private security personnel. Do you agree? Well, I don't feel I'm able to talk about this issue. This is now subject
representing
to
the government this morning.
A police investigation.
You're here representing the government this morning?
Yes, I am. And because this is a matter of police investigation, it would not be appropriate for any minister to come on your programme and to discuss this particular issue. OK, I wonder if you think that you have a view on the fact that we don't have a security minister. That post has been open for a month. We should be filling that, shouldn't we, given stuff like this is happening? Well, again, this is the matter for the Prime Minister, and he makes these appointments, and I'm sure that these things will happen in due course. OK, I'm going to ask you about the Gurkhas then. Has anyone from the government spoken with representatives from the Gurkhas that are on hunger strike just on Whitehall there? Well, we do take very seriously the issue of the pensions for Gurkhas, the Gurkhas pension scheme. We have increased it between 10 and 25% since March 2019, added another £25 million in terms of providing health for Gurkhas in Nepal. Ministers are, of course, in touch with and will be in touch with those people that are concerned about the pensions for Gurkhas. And the Gurkhas are a very important part of the British Army, and we've always taken very seriously the welfare and the pensions of Gurkhas who've served in our armed forces. Just to clarify, you said that ministers had been in touch with them, yeah? Well, I'm not entirely sure who's met who, but I do know that we are always keen to talk to people who are concerned about the welfare of our Gurkha regiment and the pensions arrangements for those soldiers. And as I've said, we have increased the Gurkhas pension scheme in March 2019 to make sure that we are providing pensions for those Gurkhas who've served so well in our armed forces. Indeed so. 250 million quid for a boat for ministers to travel around the world. That's what the Prime Minister is proposing, while these veterans are starving themselves to death on the streets of Whitehall. The optics are not good, are they? Whatever the rights and wrongs, the government has to do something about this. And that would be a matter for the MOD. In terms of wanting to sell Britain abroad, it is important. We are a global trading nation, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything to sell British business abroad, and that's the purpose of the kind of projects that you're talking about, making sure that we are getting our businesses exporting around the world as we having left the European Union, and that is what Global Britain is all about. OK. Quick thought before I let you go. Your boss couldn't remember his A-level grades when he was asked earlier on in the week. Can you remember yours? I can, yes. If you, yes, I can remember them, yes. Go on, tell me. Well, I got four grade A's, and I was able to go on to the university that I hoped to go to. And Gavin also was able to go to the university that he wanted to go to, and he was very pleased by his results. It's great to talk to you. Thanks for taking the time. Okay. Some breaking news just reaching us in the last few moments. The Office for National Statistics has published the GDP figures for the second quarter of 2021. What are they? What do they look like? Our business correspondent Helen Ann Smith joining us now from outside the Treasury. Hello to you, Helen Ann. Tell us more.
Good morning, Kay. Yeah, that's right. Q2 figures for gross domestic product, essentially the value of all products and services in the economy. It's one of the best barometers we have to really take the temperature of how the economy is doing. And it grew by 4.8% in the second quarter of this year. Now, that's not particularly surprising. It's roughly in line with what economists predicted as well. Because you remember, of course, those 3 months, April, May and June, were the months where we started to reopen after that heavy period of that third lockdown. So we were recovering from quite a low base, if you like. So important to see there, roughly in line with what economists expected. But remember, when it comes to GDP figures, perspective and context is absolutely everything. In any normal quarter, in any normal year, 4.8 would be absolutely enormous. But we're recovering from that very, very low base. And of course, GDP has done very unusual things over the last 18 months or so. And we're still 4.4% what we were on pre-pandemic levels. The Chancellor will certainly be concerned with making sure that's sustained throughout the summer. He's got some big spending commitments to pay for as well. So he'll certainly be encouraged, but challenges ahead for sure.
OK, no, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Obviously, we'll be looking forward to hearing from the Chancellor himself later on the programme. Then at 20 to 9, we'll mark World Elephant Day by crossing to a sanctuary in Kenya to discuss what is being done to protect and preserve the Earth's elephants. Plus, Lewis Pugh is back and he's taking on his most challenging swim yet. Find out what he's doing at 8:45. And then at 9:30, we'll speak to the Gurkha veteran who's continuing his hunger strike outside Downing Street. Intelligence officials are continuing to question a British man who worked at the UK embassy in Germany on suspicion of spying for Russia. Let's get more on that. Now our correspondent Alex Rossi is in Berlin for us this morning. Hello to you, Alex. What more do we know?
Well, the Germans, as you would imagine, Kay, are taking this extremely seriously. It went before an investigating judge at the Federal Court of Justice yesterday. The warrant for his continued detention was approved, and he remains in custody where he is being questioned. Now, he's only been identified as David S. We do know his full name now, but we won't be revealing that because of the strict privacy laws here in Germany and also for legal reasons in the UK. But it's our understanding that he was a private contractor. He was working inside the British embassy as a security guard. Now, we think that he started, according to the authorities here, or the allegation is that he started working for the Russians sometime in November last year. The authorities say he was monitored, he was under surveillance for some time before he was picked up and arrested on Tuesday at his apartment in Potsdam. Now, his place of work here, the areas with which he worked in his apartment, has now been searched. And as I was saying, he continues to be questioned. Now, this, of course, has resonance for many people because of the Cold War and the alleged Russian involvement. This place was known at the time as the capital of spies. Germany was divided. This city was divided. It was a front line in the confrontation, the ideological confrontation between the Western camp and the Soviets. Then, of course, nuclear weapons were pointed at each other. Now, you think things had changed dramatically since then, but perhaps not. The head of domestic intelligence here in Germany told the parliament last year that the levels of espionage now in this country are as high as the Cold War times, if not higher.
OK, Alex, for now, thanks for the update. That story featuring on the front pages of many of today's national newspapers today. Let's start with the Telegraph, should we? It says the British person arrested is strongly suspected of working for the Russians since last November. That's the way the Telegraph is seeing it. What about the Mirror? They have the same story. Russia spy sold secrets. The Mail understands the allegations relate to the sharing of classified terrorism documents, with the Times adding that the material relates to British activities, not German activities. Picture there of the Duke of York arriving at Balmoral. Finally, the Financial Times reports that MI5 had been tracking the suspect for many months. Looking at some of the other stories making news for you this morning, and we can tell you what's going on in Afghanistan. American intelligence officials say Taliban fighters could take control of the Afghan capital, Kabul, within 3 months. The group has captured 9 provincial capitals in less than a week. It's thought Islamic fighters now control around 65% of the country. British scientists say they have discovered more details on why some people receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine develop blood clots. A team from Oxford University Hospital has concluded that patients with very low platelets through a condition called VIT are most at risk. They say this type of reaction to the AstraZeneca vaccine remains very rare. New Zealand will begin a gradual reopening of its borders early next year. The Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, says restrictions will be phased out, with other countries graded low, medium or high risk. New Zealand closed its borders to most foreign travel in March of last year. Britain's most notorious conman, Mark Acklam, is about to be freed early from prison, but will have to live under tough restrictions ordered by a judge. The serial fraudster must declare his earnings, business dealings and assets, close any foreign bank accounts, stop using false names and tell police of his movements. The curbs on his freedom come in a rare, serious crime prevention order that will last for 5 years. Our crime correspondent Martin Brunt reports.
Brought back to Britain in handcuffs, conman Mark Acklam was jailed for nearly 6 years. Now he's about to be released early on licence. But a judge has ordered him to live under severe restrictions for 5 years. Acklam's been given a rare serious crime prevention order. Under the order, he must reveal his income, savings, businesses and assets, close any foreign bank accounts, stop using false names, tell police where he's living, and if he plans to spend a night away from home. Acklam met his victim, Carolyn Woods, in her Cotswolds boutique. She later wrote a book of their marriage plans, his lies and deceit, and his theft of all her money.
He always does what is best for him. So I don't think having a serious crime prevention order out in his name is really materially going to affect what he does, unless he is physically tagged or something like that. So, we all know that he's a flight risk, and I'm sure he will only comply with whatever will make life easier for him in the long run.
Acklam has spent much of his time here. He tried and failed to launch an appeal, but he's due to be freed in a fortnight. Acklam will have spent barely a third of his sentence in prison, but although there's a detailed plan to monitor him after his release, his freedom could yet be postponed. He's already a wanted man again in Spain. The Spanish are trying to extradite him. In this hearing in Cartagena in 2015, he was jailed for 3 years for fraud. He was given temporary release and fled abroad. He still has 18 months to serve.
When you consider the criminality that goes on in Spain, serious violence, people trafficking, they're probably not going to be overly keen to keep him in prison for too long anyway. So I'm pretty sure he will find a way of talking his way out for an early release.
The Spanish authorities are expected to launch a bid for Acklam's extradition soon. Martin Brunt, Sky News, Wiltshire.
Extreme weather is continuing to cause problems across southern Europe. The Italian island of Sicily has reported what could be the highest temperature ever seen in Europe. Officials say they recorded a high of 48.8 Celsius yesterday. That's just under 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The reading still has to be verified by the World Meteorological Organization. The Italian Health Ministry has issued a series of red alerts for extreme heat across the country today and tomorrow. Let's look at the impact of climate change on the planet. Top line of our infographic here gives you an idea of how the real-time power mix is blended for you this morning. 29% of renewables, and you can see how much warmer the Earth is now than in 1880. That's the second line down, 1.23 degrees hotter than it was in 1880. Then the figure below that shows how long scientists believe it will take to reach the plus 1.5 degrees Celsius figure seen by many as a point of no return for our planet. 11 years is what they are predicting. And finally, that huge figure at the bottom, the total amount of CO2 emissions in millions of tonnes. Meantime, what's happening as far as the weather is concerned today? Let's find out for you, should we? Here's Naz. Good morning, Naz.
Good morning. Well, it isn't looking too bad for many areas today. We are going to see lots of fine and dry weather, but for some, there will be blustery showers.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. Well, on the face of it, today doesn't look too bad at all. For most places, it's going to be a mainly dry day with some good spells of sunshine, feeling quite warm in parts of the southeast too. But there will be this approaching low that will bring some blustery showers. In fact, across western parts of Ireland, there's already approaching showers there where it's windy. Elsewhere, it's a mainly dry and fine start, but not everywhere. There's a cloudy zone across parts of East Anglia down towards central and southwestern parts of England with some patchy light rain and drizzle. Elsewhere, a few mist and fog patches as well. Now, going into this afternoon, that low will continue its way eastwards, pushing through blustery showers across Ireland, Northern Ireland and the north and west of Scotland. A few showers may also affect eastern and southern parts of Scotland, but I think across these areas it won't be too bad. Most of England and Wales also seeing sunshine and dry conditions, but it will take some time for central and southwestern areas to brighten up later.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
As you head for heights, take a look at this. A stunt woman has stood on top of the world's tallest building to promote the reopening of international air travel. American skydiver Nicole Smith-Ludwig climbed to the top. Whoa, the 828-metre high Burj Khalifa in Dubai, dressed as a member of the Emirates cabin crew. The airline said it asked for real members of staff to take part, but decided it was safer if they used an expert. That was her training for it. And then she actually went ahead and stood right on the top of that building. My goodness me, most impressive. Now, we're going to look ahead this morning to GCSE results after another year of cancelled exams because of the pandemic. That to come. Hello again, everybody. Hundreds of thousands of GCSE students will open their results this morning, and there are predictions grades could spike again after no exams for a second year in a row. But where will the government go from here after another year of grade inflation? This is what the Schools Minister, Nick Gibb, told me a short while ago.
So we've already announced the adjustments to the exams. We expect all young people to be taking exams in 2022, but we'll be making adjustments to those exams to reflect the fact that this cohort will have had disruption to their education as well. And the regulator Ofqual will be saying more about the grading standard that will be used for those exams in the autumn term.
OK, so just to clarify, you will be refreshing the grading system for next year?
No, what I said was we'll be talking about what the grading standard will be for the 2022 exams. We are looking also in the longer term about how to make sure that we get back to the system we had before the pandemic broke, where we had year-on-year no grade inflation, and we want to get back to that system in the longer run. But we have to make sure when we do that we are fair between different years, different cohorts, the ones that took their exams in 2020 and 2021, and the students that are taking their exams in the future. It's fairness that lies at the heart of any decisions about grading. These are very difficult decisions to make.
Tamara's here. I'm a bit confused about what he's saying there, Tamara. Can you clarify it for me?
Morning, Kay. So 500,000 young people waiting for their GCSE results, but all the discussion is now on. We expect them to be record high numbers of top grades today, possibly the highest ever for GCSEs, and how we then row back to normal, because as we saw with A-levels on Tuesday, now 45% of pupils getting A star or A's. You can't then go back to 25% next year, because these are students who will be competing with each other for university places, for jobs and so on. This is a project that will take years. And what Nick Gibb was saying was that they're going to look at the content of exams for next year and what students will be graded on, because it's probably not going to be the same as pre-pandemic. They've still missed a lot of schooling. But in terms of the actual exam grades, in the longer term, they're going to look at that as well. And there are, I understand, discussions going on in government about whether we now move A-levels away from the A to E system towards 1 to 9, to have a bit of a reset in the future, perhaps even with GCSE grades. Now, so many children are expected to get A stars, perhaps to add another one. They're already 1 to 9, maybe add a 10 on as well. All these things are being discussed. None of this is going to happen next year. Next year, grades will be as they are this year, if exams take place normally. But in the longer term, they are looking at a kind of a reset, because it's going to be so difficult to get back to before COVID began.
Yeah, exactly, especially with 45% getting A and A star. Nevertheless, 500,000 kids are getting their results this morning.
Best of luck to them.
And we have got our fingers, thanks very much, Tamara. We have got our fingers crossed for them, of course. We'll be catching up with some of them in just a short time. Right now, though, let's get the view of Cully Uppel. She's the principal of Bristol Hall Academy in Oldbury in the... forgive me, I'm so sorry, and joins us now. Hello to you, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you before I made that assumption. How are you this morning? Talk to me about what you're expecting.
Good morning, Kay. Not a problem at all. It's great to be with you here this morning. We're excited. Everyone here at Bristol Hall Academy and across our Academy Transformation Trust can't wait to welcome our students across those gates again, so they can open those envelopes and look forward to their destinations, whether it be further employment, training, whether it's further education. We certainly look forward to welcoming them this morning.
Indeed. So how do you think the kids are going to be doing? 45% A and A star in A levels. It does look as though we'll see a similar uplift for the kids doing their GCSEs. I almost call them O levels then.
Well, here at Bristol Hall Academy, we've seen a year-on-year rise in exam results. We're not surprised by this. We'll see our students, most importantly, get the results they rightfully deserve. There's been a stringent process in place. Protocols have been robust. Standardisation and moderation across the piece, not just by experts in our classroom here at Bristol Hall, but across our Academy Transformation Trust. And that's up and down this country, has made sure that the students are getting those qualifications, and they're the qualifications that they rightly deserve.
Yeah. How do you answer the charge of grade inflation because teachers have been marking?
Well, of course, Ofcom had to double check all of our policies to make sure that we are marking and assessing appropriately. As I said, the standardisation and moderation has ensured that grade inflation is eradicated. You've got professionals in the classroom who are making those decisions, and that's the most important thing. So if we're seeing a rise of 5 to 6% based on results from previous years, that's something that we'd expect anyway. And I think it's also important to note that we're not just talking about those top grades here. We're not just talking about the 9s and the 8s. We're talking about those students who have worked tirelessly hard throughout this difficult year to make sure that they pass, get that 4, get that 5, and of course, make sure, most importantly, that they get the grades that allow them to go on to the next stage in their career.
And do you feel that you've had enough clarity from government on what needs or what needed to be done ahead of the grading system this year?
Well, Kate, there's been lots of information that's come out to us at schools and academies across this country, and naturally so. That's been the environment that we've all been working on. But rather than worry about it and start to concern our parents and carers by coming across as though we don't know quite what to expect. We've been clear in our communication with everybody. We've made sure our students are aware of exactly what it is that they're going to be assessed on, making them feel prepared. And I think that's the most important thing. Our students, our families, our stakeholders have been incredibly resilient, and what they needed from schools up and down this country is to make sure that we were there for them as stalwarts throughout this pandemic. And now, of course, as we said, it culminates with this morning with those students having those huge smiles on their faces.
Well, hopefully you'll have one as well. Cully Uppal, Principal of Bristol Hall Academy, thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. And my apologies again. Thank you. But for those students who might not have got the grades they were hoping for today, what can they do going into the future? Well, let's find out from our next guest, and that's Dave Evans, founder of OCO. There he is. No, he isn't. I think Dave is with us. Hi, Dave.
Hello, good morning.
There he is. Hi, Dave. Good morning to you. We've got you now. What is your message to young people who don't get these grades that we're hearing? 45% have got A and A star, which is all well and good for them, but not everybody gets it. What should they do? They're not failures just because they haven't got glittering results in their exams, are they?
I mean, I'm not sure I'm a shining beacon of light here, but I got 2 GCSEs, one in maths, which makes sense, the other in religious education, which I know nothing about. And if I'm able to be on Sky News today talking to UK about our new business, which helps bring social cohesion, then quite frankly, anything's possible.
OK, so tell me about your new app. I'm not sure whether I pronounce it as OCO or OKO.
No, OCO, absolutely. Look, it starts with what I wanted to achieve. And what I wanted to achieve was, I mean, it's a personal story to me because I've experienced some diversity as a young person myself. And so OCO is there really. I mean, what we wanted to achieve was cohesion, parity and opportunity for all. Then there's what is OCO. The non-sexy way of describing OCO is it's the infrastructure that facilitates a mentoring relationship between people with the most potential, i.e. young adults, and people with the most experience and knowledge to pass on. And effectively, we are there to deliver a direct injection of knowledge and experience into the heart of our youth, with the idea that that will spur them on and help them to effectively avoid all the bumps and crashing around I've had to go through, if that makes sense. But then there's the kind of the model that sits behind it, because we had to build a model which delivered exponential value to all. And so we've created a system where the young people, the mentees, they get it for free, but our customers are actually the companies. And the companies get value out of it because the program that sits behind OCO trains their staff to be great mentors and nurturers of talent. And therefore all parties get something fantastic out of it. And I mean, for me, I think the question that we should all be asking at the moment is how do we solve diversity and inclusion? And whether it's racism, it's sexism, whatever sort of inequality it is, it's about helping everybody and lifting everyone up to be prosperous at the same time. Does that make sense?
It most certainly does, Dave. How do people find your app?
Websites, weareoco.com. Just search We Are OCO and you'll find us, and encourage all young people. I mean, you need to be 18 because we have to provide, we can't, safeguarding is absolutely essential. So it's 18 plus, but if you're a young adult and you want a support function, and this is not to like the extreme cases like me, this is to anybody. It's about just helping us propel the country. And I think we often love that Nick was on a minute ago. And I'm pretty sure he did say that they were going to adjust the system for the record. But when you hear the government talk about this stuff, they talk about how they're going to do a 3-year plan or they're going to put X amount of million quid into it or what have you, which is all like nonsense to the people at home. But the point for me is that we need a direct injection of knowledge right now. And that's what OCO was built on the premise of.
Sensational, Dave. It's good to talk to you. Thanks very much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Cheers. See you later. Bye.
Thanks a lot. The GCSE results are coming up very shortly indeed, and we are at schools around the country to see just how well kids have been doing. 500,000 kids expecting their results a little bit later on now. 18 months ago, a baby girl called Dalal was rushed across the border from Syria to Turkey, suffering from burns all over her body after a fire in a refugee camp. Since then, Sky's Alex Crawford has followed her story as she's now been reunited with her family. And this is Alex's report.
Dalal's the miracle baby they never thought would live. Now performing for her delighted audience. She will need years of reconstructive surgery. The skin's growing over her eyes, making it hard for her to see. And her ears need entirely rebuilding. From her feet to her legs to her amputated hands, Dalal will need medical help for a long time. But she's made astonishing progress since she was rushed to hospital at the start of this year. She was covered in burns, barely alive, and all on her own. Her family's tent in Idlib in Syria went up in flames. The fire killed her elder sister Yasmin and left her with terrible burns, whilst her other 4 siblings and parents somehow managed to get out. She was transported to Turkey as a medical emergency, and we followed her fight to stay alive ever since. Her battle stunned the Turkish doctors and prompted an outpouring of generosity around the world. Against all the odds, in May she was well enough to leave the hospital which had been her and her father's home for more than 4 months. It was an emotional moment for the doctors who'd got so attached to her. And today is another milestone. Dalal's having her first outpatient laser treatment. Every step of this journey is full of pain for the toddler. She's anaesthetised so they can work trying to soften her tight and tender scars. All this treatment's possible only after some funds were provided by a family foundation who saw our report. After the laser, Dalal is sleepy and sore and very hungry and thirsty. She's learnt to cope with her injuries and is managing remarkably well. But her father anxiously calls the rest of the family still in Syria to reassure them she's okay. Dalal's mother Fatima and her siblings are in Idlib in a tent. This is the only way they've been able to see each other since the fire. They're just one family amongst millions of Syrian refugees who fled their homes to escape the war. But now they're finally leaving the camp. A British mother's raised thousands of pounds to help pay for passports and transport to reunite the family in Turkey. They leave behind thousands of other children sheltering in camps on the border. But before they depart Syria, without knowing if they'll ever be able to return, they go to the graveyard, filled with the victims of war, to say a last goodbye to their daughter Yasmin, who died in the fire. Speak to her, she beckons her other daughters. I love you, Yasmin, one says. We're going to see Dad now. I wish you were with us, says the other. Waiting at the border on the Turkish side is Dalal and her father Abdul Fattah. And when the children see their father and sister, they can't hold back. They're delighted to be able to cuddle Dalal and immediately shower her with affection. This is the first time they've been together in 6 months. Say hi to our friends, their father tells them. Fatima is heavily pregnant. The journey, the stress, the emotion of it all is enormous. She can barely believe she's reached safety and the family is one again. Now begins the task of mother and daughter getting to know each other again. Alex Crawford, Sky News, Turkey.
At least 65 people have been killed from ongoing wildfires in northern Algeria. Joined by a member of the Algerian Red Crescent, Nafisa Toumi. Hello to you, Nafisa. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. Give us a sense, if you can, about the sort of devastating damage that these fires have been causing and what your work has included.
Yes, good morning. The number of casualties of the wildfires declared on Monday rose on Wednesday to 69, including more than 20 soldiers fighting the fire. We deplore 600 families who have been homeless and more than 1,000 injured. The Algerian Red Crescent volunteers are bringing sanitary assistance and first aid to the benefit of the fire victims. There's also distribution of food and water brought by volunteers intervention team. Moreover, a caravan consisting of 6 ambulances, specialized doctors, parapharmaceutical products, humanitarian donation is being sent to assist the victim of the fires. All the rescued families have been taken in charge, so rescue shelters have been settled up and children's psychological support have been organized since the beginning of the fires. And on the international level, the Algerian Red Crescent has launched an appeal to strengthen its humanitarian assistance to its partners within the international humanitarian movement.
Have you received any help from the international community, did you say?
We have launched an appeal, and we count on the international solidarity of Red Cross and Red Crescent movements, and then our partners, and of course the solidarity of the Algerian citizens, and of course also the Algerian authorities.
And what work are you doing? You are offering shelter to those that have lost their homes. I'm guessing you're helping all ages.
Yes, we are offering shelters. We are offering food and water. We also distribute masks, gloves because of this pandemic, COVID. And we are trying to relieve people who are in need.
OK, how long do you think that you will have to offer help and support? I mean, the damage is extensive, isn't it?
Yes, really, this situation is alarming, but we are making our best until everything will be better. We're hoping it to be better in the following days.
OK. Keep well, doing fantastic work there, and hopefully you will get increasing support from the international community. Thank you.
Thank you.
69 people now having lost their lives as a result of those fires in Algiers. Let's find out what's happening as far as the weather's concerned.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. It's not looking too bad across much of the UK and Ireland for today. There will be some good amounts of sunshine out there and largely dry conditions, but there will be blustery showers affecting some areas. As you can see, it will be across parts of the north and west, although currently most places are starting off fine and dry this morning. Lots of sunshine, except there are some isolated patches of mist and fog, and there's a cloudy zone settled across parts of East Anglia down towards central and southwestern parts of England, with some patchy light rain and drizzle. Across western parts of Ireland, it is also looking windy with some heavy showers. Those showers will become more widespread across Ireland, Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland this afternoon.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Tamara is here. Tamara, we're waiting to hear from the Chancellor. Why?
That's right, because we've got the GDP figures this morning and they cover the second quarter of this year, so April to June, when the economy reopened, and they show growth of 4.8%.
Better than expected?
It is actually a bit below what the Bank of England thought at 5%, so it is good, and I'm sure Rishi Sunak will say that the economy is bouncing back, but we think that it's slightly below the Bank of England's 5%, and we think that's because of the levels of self-isolation which we saw during that period, particularly after they put back Freedom Day from June the 21st to July, and because of the growth of the Delta variant. But I think Rishi Sunak will be saying that it gives him confidence that the UK economy can bounce back quicker than was expected, for example, last year.
Will we get an opportunity to ask him about his relationship with the Prime Minister?
We are, one of our correspondents is doing an interview with him shortly, so I believe we will be able to ask him about apparently his soaring popularity with Tory MPs.
These kids are too young to have done their GCSEs.
I believe they are at primary school age, yes.
Oh, OK.
But we'll see what he has to say about how we get back to normal after Nick Gibbs said that they were looking in the longer term at resetting the grading system.
Yeah, that was a weird answer from him. Just very quickly, because we will talk about it in more detail in just a second. But he said that we are looking again at the structure of the exams, but not at the marks.
That's right. The content
Grading,
of next year's exams, 2022 GCSEs and A-levels, has been consulted on because students won't be examined on everything as they were pre-pandemic because they've obviously missed so much school over the last couple of years. There's going to be announcements on the content in the autumn. In terms of changing the whole grading system, potentially even moving A-levels to a numerical system, that is for the years to come, but it's being discussed.